Hello, and thank you very much for joining us for this week's Betting People. We've got a special guest, Megan O'Brien of Titanium Racing, and hopefully this will be a really interesting conversation about what she does at Titanium Racing, about some of the wider issues facing syndication, and of course, some of the wider issues facing racing, along with her background. And it's that place where I want to start. So, Megan, do tell us how you got into racing.
Yeah, so I grew up watching it with my granddad and got hooked. Me and my sister went on to volunteer at our local riding school before we went on to have horses on loan, and we bought a couple of horses, including ex-race horses. I went on to do the National Stud apprenticeship course before coming back up north, where I ended up working for Labrooks for a bit. And then started working for John and running Titanium. Predominantly, we're not from like a racing background, but my sister and her partner has just set up a stud locally, and she pin hooks and breeds. She's got a few brood mares. And my partner Dan works for Rebecca Menzies and has a 2-year-old guide which is published by Martin Julian, and the second edition for this year will be out soon.
Cannot wait to get stuck into that as somebody who is a very keen follower of all things juvenile racing myself. What's your first really big racing memory?
The first one would be Monty's Pass winning the Grand National in 2003. It was probably before the time of when I actually sort of studied races and things like that. Long story short, we had a cat called Monty, who died the year before, and he was 19 when he died, and Monty's Pass was number 19 the year he won the Grand National. So we were like, well, that's just fate. So that's why we backed him, and that was probably one of the earliest memories I have of racing.
Wonderful. I think lots of people in the industry would definitely have a national memory first up. One of around that time, actually. Do you remember hedge hunting and likes of course, Amberley House? So yes, some amazing memories there. How did you get into working for Titanium and doing what you do now, which is you're their racing manager?
Yeah, so I had a share in a horse at Becky Menzies, and John had a few in there. Got talking, and I had mentioned that I'd like to get back into racing full time, sort of in an admin role. And that was that. That was 4 years ago now.
And have you been involved in the syndicate before, or is Titanium sort of not just your job, but also your first syndicate?
Yeah, well, I've had shares in horses myself. So I kind of know how people, the experience that they want out of it. So I do everything that I would expect myself. So like one of the horses that I had a share in, which was quite special, I was going to get the sharing in with my granddad, but he died sadly. And I went on to take the share myself. And the horse actually won 3 days before it was a year of his anniversary, for like passing away. So that was a really special moment.
No, absolutely. Now, one thing that has been a hot topic recently, which I think definitely affects everybody inside the industry, and it's been a talking point not only for people who work in racing, but also punters too, is prize money. It's been a really hot topic this year, as it has been for quite a few years, and many trainers are now traveling over to Ireland and France in search of better opportunities. Some, of course, who do train for other syndicates. I've seen a lot of Middleton Park horses, for example, go across. Do you think we'll see Titanium horses go overseas this summer, over flat or jumps?
Yeah, I mean, if we feel we've got the right horses and the right races are available, then we're not against travelling. If the prize money's there, then we will. Be it up and down this country, France, wherever. If there's a decent pot on offer, we'll go for it.
And as a follow-up to that question, Britain's prize money has lagged behind that of France and that of Ireland. Obviously, there are different systems, but many people believe something needs to change. How do you believe the prize money situation can be improved in this country?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Racing needs a complete overhaul. There's too much focus on speed and cheap speed at that. There are stallions at stud that, in my opinion, shouldn't be, and it's diluting the product. There's too much racing. The program really needs looked at and reducing. You know, there's too many horses. I don't think that horses rated less than 35 should be running in races. I just think it needs a complete overhaul and pretty quickly. And that prize money that could be saved from those races that aren't run can then be distributed between everyone else.
And just on that, you know, with regards to possible solutions, the fixture list being too big, as I believe you mentioned there, has been one of them. Some people will say that, you know, you need fixtures for sort of horses below sort of the elite line, you know, so that everybody gets a fair share. Would you still be in favour of having a program more like Ireland's? In other words, you know, more selective fixtures, maybe not every day of the week racing, but bigger fields? Or would you like to keep, say, a pretty steady flow of races, like we do say have here in England, or maybe even in France, but with less of the prize money spread out a bit more equitably?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of races currently that could completely be scrapped. You know, there is horse. I think as owners, we need to be responsible for the fact that if your horse isn't good enough, then why are you putting the horse under the pressure to actually compete in these races? You know, when they could be going on to do another job outside of racing. You know, I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Whether anyone does, we'll soon find out.
Moving on, are there any titanium horses you're particularly looking forward to this year? Because we are, of course, talking at the start of the flat season, with only a couple of days ago, or only yesterday, I should say, we had some Guineas trials at Newbury, and of course we had the Craven meeting.
Yeah, so there's a filly we've got, Richard Foy's, called Holy Endeavour, who will hopefully take a step up and trip this year, which she should hopefully improve for. She's a lovely filly who managed to win it at 2 for us, and she's a half sister to a listed winner. We've recently acquired a 2-year-old last week from the Craven sale, who's by Kodiak, and he goes into training with Richard. He's a really nice type. And we've got a jumper with Becky Menzies called Get a Reason, who we got out the Paul Nicholls yard. He's been placed with everyone for us since we got him, and he should, you know, go to the decent pots through the summer for the summer jumping program. So hopefully he'll give us a bit of fun through the summer as well.
Wonderful. And I'm sure as part of your position with Titanium, you will have pretty regular contact with a number of jockeys. Are there any riders we should be looking out for over the coming months?
Yeah, so I mean, Megan Nichols rides a lot for us. She's given Devil's Angel 2 cracking rides this year at Newcastle when he's won both times. And she just recently rode her first graded winner by winning the Grade 2 Aintree bumper. So hopefully she continues to have a really good season for us as well.
Wonderful. And of course, last but never least, you do have a horse of your own, Waiting for Richie. Tell us a bit more about him.
Yeah, so we bought him from Doncaster Sales. He didn't cost a lot of money. We brought him home. We sent him to Becky Menzies, and he did really well. He ran once before COVID hit. We took him out of training just because there was no races for him, so there was no point in being in training still. When we felt there was enough sort of a program for him, he went back into training, and he ran it at Newcastle on the 17th of November, which was his first run back. And unfortunately, he'd done a tendon previously, but he displaced his tendon in that race, but we were lucky enough that we could get him home, and he's doing really well in his recovery. He's had 3 months box rest. He's doing sort of 20 minutes walking a day, and he's doing really well. So for all he won't ever be ridden again, we're hopeful that he'll be able to have a life as a field horse. And yeah, he might not have done anything on the track for us, but you know, it doesn't matter. Every horse deserves a second chance at life, and you know, he's one of them.
I think that's a really lovely note upon which to end this interview. So thank you very much for joining us this week, Megan O'Brien.